Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Avry Sports Show, and we have on one of our favorite guests of all time, former professional coach, former NHL player. It is Jamie Rivers back on Avry Sports Show. Jamie, how you doing today, sir?
Well, I'm doing good, considering that I have to have the Edmonton Eskimos as my profile pic on Twitter, but I'll live with it.
Like I was saying before we started recording, I was minding my own business, watching the Eskimos take on the Ottawa Red Blacks in the 103rd Grey Cup on Sunday, and Jamie texted me saying, "What are we betting on this game?" I suggest change our Twitter profile pictures, the loser has to the opposing teams. Lo and behold, Edmonton wins 26-20. And like you said, Jamie, you have a nice Edmonton Eskimos logo. It looks really good in your profile. You should keep it up, sir.
Well, just to give you a little bit of background here, I was all fired up because the Ottawa Red Blacks are in the Grey Cup. And, it's been a while since the Ottawa team's been in there, and these guys have done a good job this year. So I'm sitting back down here in St. Louis enjoying watching the game, and I thought to myself, who can I take a fight with right now? And, I was thinking about Edmonton. I was going to go for Jason Strudwick and maybe Tyson Nash or one of those guys, but I figured that they would just turtle. I figured I'd reach out to you and throw it out there, and then you came out with a good suggestion of the profile pick. And at that time there, I think, the Red Blacks had just marched down twice for the score. I was like a peacock. I was strutting around, feathers wide open. I figured this is a no-brainer for me. It's on. And unfortunately, due to a coach's challenge pass interference, which to me still doesn't make any sense. But, I know they got the call right, but usually the referee gets the call on those ones.
And it's funny how the minute your profile picture went up in that game, Jamie, I think it was two current players, Johnny Boychuk in the Islanders and Josh Green, who plays in Finland. Immediately, two Edmonton guys like that. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I played with both those guys too. So it was kind of funny. I was laughing as I saw both their mugs come up on the like of that one. I was like, "Oh yeah, now you have something to say, eh, boys?"
And you know what, Jamie? The parade here, it was wonderful. You should have been in town for it with a nice Eskimos jersey on.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know what? Here's the thing. I've been down in the States for a long time now, and the Grey Cup, which is such an awesome thing growing up in Canada and all that, but you don't realize how much of a great Canadian tradition it is until you're not there and you can't be like part of it. And so, I look at it now and I watch the game, the halftime show. You see the people, the snow, and the cold outside. It's a great Canadian tradition. And I'm glad that they still have it. I'm glad that it's going strong, and it's good to see the crowds. And certainly it's great to have the coverage down here. ESPN2 carried it down here. So it was awesome. I would have loved to have been part of a parade. Even though if I would have had to wear an Eskimos jersey, it still would have been a lot of fun.
I can imagine for you, yeah, it would have been. Of course, you're a long-time St. Louis resident, an ex-Blue. And the Blues right now, they're off to a hard start in the season. I mean, they're losing right now to Florida. But this year, the start's been pretty good for the Blues. And a guy who, once again, has been great out of the gate, Vladimir Tarasenko. What more can you say about this guy? Leading the team in scoring, 14 goals, 24 points. I mean, what can you do to stop this guy, Jamie? He's been on a tear for the Blues as per usual.
Yeah, he's a kid that, he's never satisfied, which is a great characteristic to have as a pro player. Like the Jonathan Tays, the Patrick Kanes of the world, and obviously the elite players are never satisfied. And this kid's young. He just ain't a huge deal, and sometimes that can kind of pull you off the right path, and it hasn't. It's made him even more laser-focused to try and be the best goal scorer in the league. And, he works hard. He works out hard after the practices. He's a great guy, great team guy. So, everybody's pulling for this guy. And every time he scores, St. Louis just goes crazy. And, he usually has one or two highlight reel kind of goals for the whole world to watch at least twice a year. So, I got nothing but great things to say about this guy. How you stop him? I don't know. I mean, back in the day, we used to be able to just kind of pitchfork a guy or can over him and stay with him and shadow him the whole time. But you can't do that these days, so I'm glad I don't have to play against him.
It would be that far-fetched to think he could be a guy who's in contention for the Ross Trophy this year, in my mind, Jamie. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that to get into a category like that, you certainly have to be surrounded by other elite scorers, too. And as you know, it's not a one-man gang out there in the sport of hockey. Usually every guy who's an Art Ross type contender has a couple of guys who are close in the running, too. And you look at guys like Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin in Dallas, and Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews. There's always a 1-2 punch, in my opinion. So, as great as Tarasenko's doing, and the Blues are so deep up front that it's a great thing for them. But individually, a guy like Tarasenko, all the attention goes to him on the defensive side for other teams. So he draws a lot of extra coverage out there that, not that they don't have good goal scorers here in St. Louis, but they don't have that, that electrifying goal scorer opposite of Tarasenko that other teams have to look out for. So as great as he is, I think that he's got a lot of work to do before he can get to that point.
I definitely do agree with that, Jamie. He's still very young in his career. And he mentioned his Blues team being very deep. I look at St. Louis, I look at the scoring right now. It's not just him putting the points up, it's also Alex Steen, Troy Brouwer, David Backes. To have guys like these, it's going to be so important for St. Louis to try and get past the first round even this year after crashing out in round 1 last year.
Yeah, well, the number one thing that I like that the Blues have done, and I said it after the season last year, I don't know how many interviews or talk shows that we went through, is they needed some leadership. And I didn't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm not saying anything about David Backes, but what I was trying to say is most of the teams who go deep, who win it these days, still have a couple of grizzled old vets in the locker room who have kind of been there, done that, and no matter what their level of play is now, they still carry enough clout to talk to the room. And the Blues went out and got, Scotty Upshall, who, I'm not going to say he's a grizzled old vet, but he's been around, and, he's a hardworking guy, a character player, lots of energy. And then they got Scott Gomez, who, the world had written this guy off to where they thought, the hockey dudes would never find this guy again. And it's amazing that he still plugs away the last couple of years, and now he puts himself back into a team in St. Louis where, he doesn't have to be the one-man show out here. And he's contributing offensively very well for the team, but the leadership and his dedication, he's first guy on the ice, last guy off. He does all sorts of extra drills after practice. All that kind of stuff rubs off on your current leadership group and your younger guys that are still learning how, what it takes. So having all these little elements in place, and little grizzled vet and Gomez, and a good warrior like Upshall, these are all keys to a successful team.
You mentioned Scott Gomez. He's a guy, you have him in the room as a mentor. You put him in for a playoff run, he can be the big difference between his team lasting one round or making it to the conference finals or a cup final appearance.
Well, look, Hitch has done a good job of kind of incorporating Gomez in a capacity of second to fourth line. You can find him anywhere out there, and because he's a veteran guy and knows the game so well, he can play in any kind of situation. Whether you need him to play 5 minutes or 15, he's able to do it. And, a notable thing is when it goes to overtime, it's 3-on-3. Well, guess what? Scotty Gomez is on the ice, and it's like a giant game of keep away, and he's one of the best guys in the last decade of handling the puck and distributing it, not just turning it over. So it's amazing that a guy like Gomez can play fourth line or even help you scratch. But then when he's in the lineup, Hitch is not afraid to turn to him in overtime in a 3-on-3 and say, hey, here's the puck, kid. Do what you do.
Exactly. Definitely shouldn't be afraid. And going from Scott Gomez, a veteran, to a rookie who, very surprising to me, in Colton Perico, the young defenseman from St. Albert, Alberta, I didn't see this coming from him. 22 games played, 12 points. He wasn't drafted in 2011. He was drafted in 2012, 86 overall. It's a very deep rookie class this year, Jamie, with guys like Jack Eichel, Connor McDavid. Even though he's hurt, I think he'll come back and still contribute immensely in Edmonton. You have Max Domi and so on and so forth. If he keeps his play up in St. Louis, is it that wild to think that he could be a guy that's in talks for the Calder Trophy?
Well, I think you absolutely have to look at it, and, just because I'm a former defenseman, doesn't mean I think it's harder to play defense, but quite honestly, it is harder to play defense in this, the world's NHL now. Like, we talked about it earlier, joking about pitchforking guys or holding guys. You can't do it anymore. So you've got to be extremely fleet of foot or really smart and certainly able to move the puck and contribute offensively. And this is a kid that, at his size, but 6'6" or 6'7", whatever the hell he is, it's hard to imagine saying he flew under the radar anywhere, but he has. He went up playing in Fairbanks or Alaska Fairbanks, so obviously, not something that everybody's scouting on a daily basis as far as the regular hockey fan. And then he comes in here and does what he has to do, and credit to Hitch and Bradshaw and everybody else involved for saying, you know what, let's give him a shot. And it's unbelievable how quickly he has adjusted. And, I was somewhat critical of him in the first 5-6 games. And not even from his play, because he was doing fantastic. But in my opinion, in the first 5 to 10 games, he was still moving the puck a little too slow. And you know what? It's amazing. Since that point in the season, I'm sitting here now, I'm watching him, and I'm like, he's as good as anybody they have on the blue line right now. And you can tell by the way Hitch plays him in every situation possible, and there's no better vote of confidence than that.
Absolutely, 110%. I agree with you in that, Jamie. And of course, in net with Brian Elliott, and you have Jake Allen. Last year, goaltending was a bit iffy. Things went a bit wild. You also had Martin Brodeur in there before he retired last year. How comforting is it to see these guys playing well with Jake Elliott? His goal against average, 2.03, his mark of 11 wins, 4 losses, 2 overtime losses. And Brian Elliott, he's played in 7-8 games, and he has a 4-2-1 mark. Is this as comfortable as the Blues have been in net in quite some time?
Well, I would have to think that it is. Brian Elliott, he's Mr. Rodney Dangerfield of the world. Gets no respect from anybody. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He just continues to be solid. Let's not forget that he's been an all-star twice in the NHL, and, he's done a lot of really good things. Now, that being said, imagine that he's put in a backup role now. With all those great accomplishments, he's in a backup role to Jake Allen, who, in my opinion, is the next best thing coming up in the NHL. You think of young goalies who have kind of reached a top success here in the last little bit, and he's right on track to do that. The saves he makes, he's never out of a play. He never gives up. He's mentally tough. Jake Allen is the guy. He will continue to be the guy the rest of the year. But what a luxury it is to have that if something goes wrong or there's injury, heaven forbid, or a streak that Jake needs to take a break in, you got Brian Elliott you turn to, who's been a consummate professional and a great veteran guy and is always steady for you and gives you a chance to win as well. So, yeah, the Blues are healthy in net right now in many ways.
You mentioned Brian Elliott. He's an all-star, and I do want to talk about the all-star game, actually, as a segue. And you're a guy, I know you didn't play in any all-star games, but I'm sure you've observed different formats of the all-star games, be it North America versus the world, East, West, captains against captains. What are your thoughts on the all-star game now being a division versus division format and 3-on-3?
Well, first of all, I didn't play in the All-Star games because I turned it down. I felt that I needed a little extra rest, and most of the time the coaches wanted me to make sure I got rest as well.
Oh, of course.
So all jokes aside, I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be, I guess it's a wait and see. They're going to have a lot of this going on. It's not going to be focused on one single game, which I wonder how that's going to translate to the hockey fan watching it or the TV coverage. I don't know. I think I was excited at first for not necessarily the 3-on-3 format. I thought they should have went with 4-on-4 format and had conference versus conference, kind of go back to old school. Then they started to tweak it and bring in all this other stuff. I'm a fan of change, but not sure if I'm a fan of massive changes to something that has been the same way for so many years. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be great. I hope it is because everybody's been dogging on the actual game for years now, and it'd be fun to see something that's exciting and that that people like.
It should be. In actual NHL games, you don't see much 3-on-3. I'm sure maybe you had it in your career maybe once or twice. How do you really adjust to playing with that few players on the ice for more than, say, a minute or two at a time, Jamie? Is that tough to really adjust when there's that much ice for players, even in an all-star game, do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, the part that people, not everybody, some people forget about is that it takes a massive amount of energy and conditioning to play 3-on-3 hockey. And I mean, people look at it like, oh, yeah, it's just kind of running down. Well, running down. Go back and down the ice 3-4 times in a row and see how you feel after, And then you can't get a change because that team's cycling it around in your end and they're not turning the puck over, so you're up there another 30 or 40 seconds. It's a difficult format to play in for sure. With the amazing players that are in the NHL right now, and the puck control and the puck protection, it's going to be interesting to watch because, very few mistakes will happen out there, and it'll be guys will have shifts that are, a minute and a half long, and they're going to be gassed. So I think that as much fun as it's going to be, it's just going to be taxing on the guys too.
It will be very taxing. 3-on-3 is a big thing that it's in the NHL now as a way of settling overtime. And do you like the fact that you're using this now to kind of get away from the shootouts? Because I'm not sure if you were ever in a shootout. I'm sure if you were, you would have been an absolute sniper in the shootout. But do you like the fact that the NHL is trying to cut back in the shootouts by using this? Because so few games now ever go to a shootout. Games are ending within the first minute of overtime most of the season.
Yeah. Well, to clarify something, I did go in the shootout once in the NHL.
Really?
And I was 1-for-1 against Roman Chetmanik. So, poor Roman's still trying to get over it.
You and Strudwick, 1-for-1 in the shootout lifetime. I know he beat Olaf Kolzing and you beat Chetmanik. Interesting, you guys beat elite netminders.
That's right. We sent them into retirement. They're still trying to recover.
I don't know. What is up with you guys and the stay-at-home defensemen beating elite goaltenders? Because I remember in that Rangers-Capitals game, it was Merrick Malik who embarrassed Kolzing. What's up with you stay-at-home guys embarrassing netminders in the shootouts? What's that about, Jamie?
Well, the goalies are usually so, surprised that we can even skate, for that matter, that, you come down and shoot the puck, and they're like, what just happened? And now, let's not get carried away here. If you actually go into my Google profile, you might see that I was the third top-scoring defenseman ever in the OHL.
That is true.
So, I don't want to go pat myself on the back, but there is a little bit of skill buried deep down in there somewhere.
Your Sudbury Wolves time, your 32 goals in spot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I do want to ask you, Jamie, with the 3-on-3 overtime, the massive changes, is it kind of silly to think that the NHL has a scoring issue? Because that's the big topic. Oh, my gosh, we need more goals. To me, I don't really mind it right now. I don't think we have a big issue. I don't really need every game to end, say, 6-5 in this league.
No, I know. It's so tough because, the NHL has done a good job of growing the game and the marketing of it and making it much more appealing for the TV viewer, especially down in the United States. And, they're looking for something all the time. And, back in the 80s when the Oilers in the early 90s and when there was 7-6, 6-5, everybody was screaming about they needed tighter defense, better defense. And, it's just the evolution of the game, right? So now we've gone into a defensive-minded trend where, I don't think it's defensive-minded, but it's way more structured than it ever was before. And I still think that there's good production. I still think it's exciting. Is this a way of promoting more goal scoring? I don't know about that. I do know that a lot of people were tired of the shootout as players and coaches and management because, like you said, you get guys like Merrick Malik, Jason Strudwick, even myself coming in there where you're deciding it in a breakaway kind of format. But let's be honest, it's three players that you probably wouldn't have to worry about in an overtime format, and that's no disrespect to anybody, but players and management are like, even if 3-on-3 is not a realistic 5-on-5 type setting, it's still a game setting where you have to make good plays, actually have to set up a goal to score it, and it's not just a skills competition. So, for that matter, I think that that's what the NHL is looking for.
And that's kind of funny because with 3-on-3 now, there's still a debate of bigger nets. I don't think that's really needed to have bigger nets and 3-on-3 in the game.
Yeah, what's tough is if you fall into that trap at any point, you go on the internet and you look at pictures of the old goalies in the butterfly stance.
Yeah.
And you look at the pictures of the new day goalie in the butterfly stance. Everybody's like, oh, the equipment's so much bigger, this, that, the other. honestly, the percentages of bigger goalies physically now is what's happened. Is, you used to have one or two goalies that were like 6'2" or even 6'3", and they were considered huge goaltenders back in the day. And now, I mean, if you're not drafting a 6'3" goalie, well, all of a sudden you're drafting a small guy. And so, the size of the athlete combined with the bigger gear, well, yeah, it limits the size of the net. There's no doubt there's less to look at. So, should they make it bigger? No. But I did hear one suggestion that I kind of liked was that they had the posts angled inward so that if you hit the post, you had a greater chance of that puck going into the net. And I like that. It still doesn't change the size of the net. It just changes that maybe that one out of every five that hits the post goes in the net instead of bouncing out.
That's not a bad idea at all. And you mentioned the goalies getting bigger, and it's true. It is so true. You're seeing goalies like a Devin Dubnyk, like a Mike Smith, like a Ben Bishop, who they're 6'5", 6'6". You're not seeing any more goalies who are Darren Pang height. It doesn't happen now in the NHL.
No, I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, any goalie who is small, they might have some quick success because of their athleticism, but then if the wear and tear of their bodies and they slow down at least even a little bit, well, they get kind of muscled out because you've got all these massive goalies, and even the darlings in Chicago. He's 6'6". Like every Pekka Rinne, everywhere you turn, there's 6'4" and bigger goalies. And if you got a goalie that's that size, moving the same or at least close to the same as your 5'10" or 6' goalie, I would be going with the bigger guy too. Mathematics tell me that he takes up more space out there.
It's true, yeah, it definitely does tell you that. Before I let you go, Jimmy, I do want to get your take on next year the NHL is going to bring back the World Cup of Hockey, and you know what, when I first heard it, I thought, cool. And then I heard we're going to have Team Rest of Europe all mishmashed together, and an under-23 team. I know some people love it. My dad loves the idea of a Young Guns team beating Team Canada, but what do you think about that? I think it's kind of corny to have thrown together two teams playing international nations in a tournament.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'd be excited again with the World Cup of Hockey, but I'd bring back the old Canada Cup thing. Like you got Canada, Russia. So yeah, you have the big dogs of the world as far as the hockey countries. Right now, it's confusing, because you got all these, the under 23, whatever they are. So now, if they're some of the best players in the world, well, they're not representing their country. They're representing Team Young Guns or whatever it is, and mishmash Europe together and all that. I mean, if these teams want to play in the World Cup of Hockey, then they should have to qualify. And if Team Slovakia isn't qualified to make it, or Team, Finland doesn't make it because they suck at the qualifier,
right,
then so be it. I'm a big fan of the international setup as far as country versus country. So for me, the mishmash of European players and the Young Guns team just doesn't make any sense to me. If they can't play for their country in a real role, then they shouldn't be in there. And if you're keeping old guys around just because, and the young guys are better, then the young guys should be on the team. So that's my take on it.
Exactly. I think this would be way better seeing, say, Eichel versus McDavid, or seeing, you mentioned qualifying. I think it'd be pretty dang cool to have a qualifying and say Slovenia gets in, and you can market the heck out of a gold medal game, World Cup, Canada, Slovenia, the kings of hockey against the underdogs. To me, that's money. That's marketing right there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know. I think that they, like I said, they always try to tweak things. And sometimes when you tweak it too much, you ruin it. And I'm a fan of subtle change. And this is too much for me. I think bringing it back was subtle enough, the change of having it back in the mix. They should have just left it be, because the first time it was a great recipe for success. It ended up being a massive rivalry in the final. And, I was looking forward to that kind of thing again.
Of course, same here. It's been a blast talking to you again, dude. Maybe one day we'll do a podcast in St. Louis with you, buddy.
I would love to do that. I've always got, I can make sure the dog's out of the bed for you. You can come over and sleep over here and sleep in the dog bed. It's nice and big. You're a little guy. It'll fit nicely for you.
Listen. I could fit into a shoebox. A dog bed might be too big for me.
Buddy, you're always welcome down here. I'd love to do one down here in St. Louis.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jamie.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.